morning, and apologies for that technical challenge with the audio. You're watching Daybreak on this 21st day of August 2023. My name is Sam Gituko. I want to introduce the panelists here in studio this morning of this conversation. You have Fred Okango, who is the Political Affairs Secretary at the KANU Party. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. Good morning.
Geoffrey Wandeto is the Member of Parliament for Teto constituency. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. Good morning, viewers.
Great to have you here. And also we have Innocent Mugabe, the Member of Parliament for Likuyani. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
And welcome back. Of course, we had invited David Ochieng, who had confirmed to appear, but he has an emergency. He's not able to make it for the conversation, but he continues. And of course, we invite him at his earliest convenience. But in the meantime, the dailies this morning, rejected degrees is the main story in the Standard, giving an account of some programs that have attracted very few applicants. 18 degrees attracted only one student each during the recent placement to universities. 7 students who chose to study Bachelor of Science in Climate Change. And 104 is the number of academic programs that attracted only 10 students each. But then again, you see Bachelor of Education Arts, 20,000, Bachelor of Education Science, 9,300, and Bachelor of Arts, 5,500. That's the main story of the Standard. On this Daily Nation, it is the stolen dream, devolution at 10, giving an account of the finances, how they have been for the past 10 years, but also the report that came from EACC talking about some main forms of embezzlement, but also how resources have been rerouted and used wrongly, incorrectly. And of course, there are some former governors and a few currents that are still facing challenges in court, but it remains at that in court. Then Ruto moves to counter Raila influence in Gusii region is a story that you'll find on page 6 of the Daily Nation. We'll get to the politics proper later, but first let's take a look at what the president said while in Kiambu. Sometime last week, he was speaking about the fight against corruption. Watch.
Vile waskofu aliwaambia wale walevi waokoke ama wahame. Hata mimi nawaambia wafisadi wabadilike ama wahame Kenya, because we will not allow them. Pale Kasarani nilipatiwa Biblia, nikapatiwa katiba, na pia nilipatiwa upanga. Hii upanga hii ni ya kufyeka hawa wafisadi wote na wakora wote. Hiyo I will not spare them. Ukilipa ushuru, nyinyi mniulize. Ikitumika vibaya, I will answer. Si ndio? Mimi ndio ndajibu, kwa sababu mimi ndio nimeuliza. We shall treat corruption at all levels of government as a high priority law enforcement issue requiring expeditious and decisive response. Regardless of position, office or status, any person implicated in the loss of public funds, whether in the national or devolved government, must encounter the punitive consequences of their action in full. I expect the agencies concerned to move with speed and attend to the many cases of corruption that are festering in many counties, including Uasin Gishu County.
All right, that was the president at two different events. The first one was in Kiambu, the other one was in Eldoret during the devolution conference that was on Wednesday. And of course, he's talking about the war against corruption. This has to be one of the few times that has come out to clearly spell out what his plan is on the war against corruption. Honorable Wandeto, we've seen previous presidents make pronouncements, even more stern ones, and still face challenges in dealing with this vice. What is so different this time, at a time that we know different agencies have been trying as much as they can, but not quite succeeded in, if you look at the conviction rate?
Some, I think we all agree that the biggest challenge that has derailed the dream of the fathers or our fathers who fought for independence has been corruption and wastage. So it's actually perhaps the #1 biggest challenge that we face in this country. And I agree with you, there has been very, very many attempts. Every leader who comes has been talking about corruption. and maybe ends up not quite resolving it. But what we have seen in our current president is not just a talk, but a real determination to fight corruption. Some, I don't know whether you're aware, one of the big projects in the Kenya Kwanza government has been automation of government services. And the president gave an ambitious target of 5,000 services will be automated. And actually most of them have been automated, and there are even more that are being worked on. And the sole purpose of this is to seal that wastage and and pilferage of public funds. And by the president coming out in the open and making these pronouncements to governors, to other leaders, I think he is leading from the front and saying it cannot be business as usual. The independence dream, the development dream has been delayed for 60 years. We cannot delay it further just because a few people want to work at the expense of the majority. So I see new determination, we are all behind the president in this, in slaying the dragon of corruption at long last.
But what exactly can he do? Because we know what the law is. We know the institutions that are supposed to be doing what exactly. But what is this that he will do differently?
I think the president sets a mood for the country. We have all said that the reason why corruption seems not to be going away is because, we do not see very strong political goodwill, from the top. That has been how we've seen this problem from the past. And I think what the president is doing is saying, from where I sit, this is a problem. We must fix this. And I think that is going to send a very, very strong signal, first of all, to the institutions that are, that have been created to combat corruption. Because previously, some of these institutions felt that maybe if we go after so-and-so, we'll receive a call from this and this place, and we'll not be able to, to deal with that person. We have had, cases whereby the agencies have been fighting among themselves and are not agreeing on the way forward. This setting of the tone, this is sort of like, from the top saying this is a problem and we must fix it, I think is perhaps very, very significant in terms of the war on corruption.
Honorable Innocent Mugabe, I mean, how different, and does it really matter if you're to look at how corruption has played out the past few years?
Thank you, Sam. First of all, I really want to appreciate that in the recent past, the president has started to talk about corruption. During his whole campaign period, and even after getting into office, the word corruption has been very elusive from his lips. And I think finally he has realized that this is a dragon that we all need to fight. But my challenge is that to me it looks like a doublespeak, or what we'd call a lip service. From what we've seen this Kenya Kwanza administration do on handling corruption matters, it actually doesn't make a lot of sense when the president talks about this. Because immediately after being sworn in, we've seen dropping of high-level corruption cases for what they would call lack of evidence or substantive material to prosecute these cases, which to many Kenyans, we feel that it is just a way of government using its machinery to try and clean the people who have allegedly been involved in corruption cases. We've seen appointment into public office of people who have history in corruption. Look at the recent past on the Kenya National Trading Corporation. The names mentioned of people who have been awarded unprocedurally tenders to supply commodities to Kenya National Trading Corporation. These are people who are close to the president. Some are his cronies. You look at the procurement portal where they're supposed to declare, especially the beneficiary shareholders. It has not been done. There are a lot of gaps. And as we talk on this side that we are fighting corruption, on the other end we actually embracing it with both hands. And I don't see a lot of genuineness in the fight against corruption from the Kenya Kwanza government. And from our side in Azimio, we said, even before increasing issues of taxation and everything, let us first of all address the issue of corruption and utilization of public funds. There's a lot of embezzlement of public funds in Kenya. And to us, that should have been the priority that would help public funds to be utilized providently. And this would help in many other aspects, including reducing the cost of living, instead of overtaxing Kenyans. And after overtaxing them, we continue to embezzle the funds or misuse the funds that are coming from taxing Kenyans.
So tell me, how would you suggest, because I mean, it's still a new term because the regime is yet to turn 1 year since inauguration. How would you suggest that they deal with corruption and win where the previous regimes failed?
We have very robust and proper laws in terms of public finance management, in terms of public procurement and disposal. And what these governments need to do is actually to be open and enforce these laws, to be transparent. Like what you're seeing now, companies are being awarded tenders which nobody knows. It is being done behind the scenes. We've seen people using proxies to access government tenders to benefit just a few people. We've seen...
Give an example.
Yeah, we have, I think we have quite a number, especially those that were awarded contracts by the National Trading Corporation. And I think it is in public domain, a number of companies that uses the same address, some have same directors who actually mentioned into that. Yeah, so that should be the first point.
Just hold on.
Yes.
So where is the corruption?
The corruption, first, you know, in public procurement, there are procedures that a tender has to be advertised before it is awarded. That is one. Number two, in the public procurement portal, apart from mentioning, having the names of the directors, we also need to have the names of what you call the beneficial owners. Who may not be necessarily the directors, but are the beneficiary of the proceeds. And we've seen that this particular aspect has not been fully implemented, which leaves a lot of question marks on who are the actual beneficiaries of all this. And we've seen companies related to a number of companies related to one or two individuals getting a number of tenders. We've seen companies that we question their speciality, because you find they're supplying commodities here, and again, there are companies dealing with the issues of electricity. They have been awarded tenders by REREC. So you question, what is the speciality of these companies, or the aim is just to benefit individuals?
Okay.
So, yes.
All right, Fred, what are your thoughts? Because like what is describing the gaps in the procurement processes that you find people being, fronting other people, the proxies, as he calls them. How differently can this be done? Because as soon as a regime changes, you see a lot of realignment, even by the business community.
That's true, Sam. That's true. First of all, we have so many laws in this country that are meant to curb corruption, quite a number of them. The same way, we have got institutions, a number of them that have been tasked to ensure that we fight corruption. But let me just take you back some. Mm-hmm. Corruption in Kenya is no longer systematic, but systemic. It means it is wholesome. In fact, institutions budget for corruption, and they put in the budget that is passed at the county assembly level and at the National Assembly level. Now, there are two institutions, in fact, three. The controller of budget, every 4 months, submits a report on the implementation of that budget, and he or she flags certain areas and gives his or her report to the assemblies or to the national, or to the parliament. That report should be utilized. The Auditor General, in fact, it is only audit
you
report.
Said she flags that what?
The control of budget gives a report on the implementation of the budget. So if there is any wrong implementation, then that report would show. Okay. And therefore, that should be taken into account. Number two, the Auditor General report, which is the only report that shows whether public money has been used lawfully and efficiently, is a report that is always being also tabled in Parliament. And parliaments have got timelines, this Parliament and Assembly, to take action on that report. Then there is the National Police Service, that it's one of the objectives is to stop corruption and promote transparency and accountability. That is the objective. Now, if you look at how we, the people of Kenya, have been denied services because of corruption, it is terrible. The people of Kenya have been denied roads because of corruption. They have been denied health services because of corruption. They have been denied water and sanitation because of corruption. And this is something that we have been talking about year in, year out. And you have asked a question, how are we going to ensure that now we fight corruption head-on? Most of these corruption cases that you see now, in fact, some of them have been devolved. They are more in the counties and as much as they are in the national government. But in my view, if we are to strengthen the institutions that I've talked about, and now add into them the EACC and the DCI, you strengthen them and give them tools and equipment that will be effective. Because people beat systems. Honorable Wandeta said that they are digitalizing. But look, garbage in, garbage out. The person using that platform is the implementer, and these are things that have been designed by people. They'll beat it, and when they beat it, they'll be using public money in a manner that is not prudent. The principle of public finance demands of accountability and openness, and even prudent use, but we still talk about corruption. In my view, I think we need to start looking at the people we put into office first. The people you put into office, because they're the people going to use the system, they can decide to beat it or secure it.
At what point? At the election time or appointment?
Both at the election time, because the objective of the election also is not to go into an election that is corruption-free, and at the appointment time.
But Fred, we are 4 years to the next election.
Yes.
We have already done the election. There are people already,
Now, unfortunately, we have people that have been appointed by the government in place. We have people that have been elected by Kenyans and are in office, and we are still talking about corruption. So what we must do, we must now strengthen institutions that are tasked with fighting corruption, and I've mentioned them. But some, because we'll have another election, we'll have another appointment, we'll have a government in place come 2027. What are we doing towards ensuring that as we go towards that time, we have people that are competent enough and suitable to be in office? Then we have got institutions that are working, institutions that do not wake up one day and say, we do not have enough evidence to sustain these charges, and therefore we're going to drop them. Institutions of police that are for sure going to fight corruption and promote accountability and openness. But having said that, we know for sure, Sam, that the political goodwill in fighting corruption is a very important aspect. That's why when certain people are found to have mismanaged money meant for the public in one way or another, they run to the community and say we are being targeted. You have seen that before, Sam. This time I was very happy when I saw Honorable Ruto in Eldoret, and he was tasked by the crowd. And in fact, he was told, Finland And they asked them, what do you mean? Finland. Then immediately he said, those who have misappropriated those funds must make good. You know, the law says, Sam, that if you have been found to have misappropriated public funds, whether in office or out of office, you shall make good. So that is an aspect of constitution that we must always imply. And in any case, all the money that have been lost all through, I wish that we implement this provision of law such that anyone who has mismanaged and have been found to mismanage through a process that is due shall be made to make good all the money. That way, I can tell you, even this budget that we are now struggling with in terms of funding, we'll have a lot of money to fund budgets, a lot of money to build roads, a lot of money to have proper health care. That is the only way. Otherwise, the laws are there, the institutions are there, but the implementers are the same people who mismanage the funds, who misuse the funds, and also do not have the political goodwill to ensure that we don't have corruption.
I hear you. Honorable Wandeto, yes. So the president has nominated a new director of public prosecutions, that is Renzo Mulele, will be vetted by the House before appointment. But if you look at towards the end of last year and early start of this year, several cases were withdrawn or they collapsed on account of insufficiency of evidence, including one against the deputy president. And there has been this talk that the institutions were being used by the executive, but also, yes, that was during the investigations and arraignment, but also that there's a possibility that the executive has used these institutions to draw charges to their political friends. I mean, is there winning in this? Because DCI, EACC, DPP, all of them, you'd say they're doing everything that they could, but there is always something that defeats that war.
The unfortunate thing is that occasionally the war on corruption has been politicized and used to target certain people, so that if I don't agree here with my friend Okango here, and I'm in power, I can basically invoke certain issues and level a case against him and all that. And we saw this happening especially towards the dying years of the last regime, whereby just people, because they did not agree with the political stand of the government of the day, were hauled into court with all manner of trumped-up charges. And it is very, very unfortunate that the criminal justice system, the legal system, the judicial system may have been used to just persecute innocent people who are just going on with their business just because they had a different political stand. And that's why you see some of these cases collapse, because you cannot take to court a case which maybe it was just based on some instructions, arrest so and so because he has done this and this. Our judicial system, the beautiful thing is that at the end of the day, even if you rush someone to court when they are innocent, when the proceedings begin and all that, at least somehow justice is served. And that's why you saw.
So is the idea here to protect the accused or to protect resources from being stolen?
It is to protect resources from being stolen. But we are also a nation that believes in constitutionalism, that believes in rule of the law. Some, however much I hate you, I cannot just pick up charges and take you to court.
So, is it a
that
coincidence?
Case will collapse. Whether it's a coincidence, I mean, I know what Innocent is trying to imply here. And the cases that have been dropped were not just for people in government. I think we have had several other, quite a number of cases. And some, even if they're not dropped by DPP, they collapse at the corridors of the courts. So what this should become is a wake-up call to the institutions that have been charged with the task of fighting corruption. Anytime they pick up a case, they must be double sure. Then they must also ensure.
Is the institutions or the political climate?
I think it was the political climate. And that's why, first of all, we are telling them, you cannot be instructed. Please don't take instructions to arrest so-and-so from a political point of view.
Is that so?
If you have no evidence, of wrongdoing, you cannot receive a phone call from anywhere.
Just a few weeks ago, we had a lot of arrests across this town during the month of July.
Yeah.
And several operations being conducted and cabinet secretaries coming out to explain what is happening. You want to tell me that is not political instruction?
To the best of knowledge, it was not. The Mandamano issue was a very, very serious issue. And here, police were trying to protect, to restore law and order. And if they deemed that someone was either organizing or financing or facilitating in any way the political violence that we saw being unleashed on Kenyans, of course, that needed to be stopped. So I don't think it's the same thing, Sam.
No, just hold on. I'm reading on the point that you raised, that you said that there will be no political instructions to the security agencies or the anti-corruption agencies. Are you aware that the deputy president spoke about withdrawal of security officers from the leaders of the opposition and said that he's giving them 3 months for them to reform before they can be reinstated?
That has nothing, Sam, to do with the fight on corruption.
No, I'm asking you, are you aware of that?
What the deputy president basically said, and remember, he is part of the security organs of the government,
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Why would he have any power to instruct which officers go to who or withdrawn from whom, knowing that the law does not provide for such an avenue?
He was not instructing. He was actually just saying what the police have already done.
And he said
that if you misuse your firearms, if you misuse your security, this is what police will do. It had nothing to do with, actually the deputy president was just reporting what already the police should do in the circumstances.
What he said, he was at Alliance Boys on a Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
And he said that he's going to assess, he has looked at them, they have not reformed, he's giving them 3 months, after 3 months he'll assess again, and if they are okay, the security officers will be reinstated. How then can you tell me that the police officers are not taking instructions from the executive?
But you see, is police part of the executive?
It's not.
The police is part of government. It is but it is part of government, okay?
Not executive.
But what I'm trying to say, Sam, here, the police were not taking any instructions. The police were basically executing the law as it speaks. So the deputy president was actually just saying, this is what happens in these circumstances.
Some, the truth is...
You cannot rework what he said. Honorable Mugabe.
The truth is the executive arm of government has captured other independent units, have captured parliament, have captured judiciary, the police unit, the DPP. These institutions we call independent, they are no longer independent. Why? Because today if an appointment or nomination is sent to parliament, we know that Kenya Kwanza has already captured parliament through the numbers. So it will pass. So basically, the executive has a free hand on doing everything. And I was asking, is it a coincidence that for the dropped corruption cases all came from the Kenya Kwanza government team? We saw a case like for Aisha Juma just dropped before her vetting. We've seen cases of Sang of KPC being dropped and him being appointed even and procedurally before the courts intervened and the liked. We've seen case of like our brother Waluke, who was at that time fully in Azimio, being sentenced for 67 years, while all other corruption cases were being dropped in a way that has never been seen before. So that's why we're asking,
But the sentencing happened way before the election.
Yes, but there was an appeal, and after election, he was again, after election, he was sentenced. His case was heard after election. He was actually arrested and
so the court of appeal gave its finding.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying, is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that all these cases, after being sustained all that time, immediately after election, they are being dropped for the Kenya Kwanza side, and they are being held for the Azimio side, and that's why we say there's a lot of political interference, especially in our judicial system. Even if the last regime had that does not warrant the current regime to continue with that. Okay. And for me, even in Eldoret, especially the pronouncement on the issues of Finland and all that, it was just to create a palatable ground for the president to make his speech after the number of demonstrations, after the number of cries that the people of Eldoret had.
I think he means it.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Just to correct that, I may have said that it was the Court of Appeal that confirmed the case against Waluke. No, it was the High Court. So it was first the Magistrates Court, then the High Court, and I think he has appealed at the Court of Appeal, and that is why he's out and sitting in Parliament. But also, I wanted just to inform Honorable, wanted to hear of what Deputy President Gachagua said on the 30th of July. He was at Alliance and he said, since I have not seen a commitment that you denounce violence and give Kenyans an undertaking that you will not go back to the streets, those policemen will stay on standby for now. If in the next 2 to 3 months you are of good behavior and there is no chaos, we shall return the men to you. Lakini sahi haiwezekani. And of course, I mean, it's open to interpretation, but clearly you can see what he means being the Deputy President. And of course, he also sits at the National Security Council. We are taking a short break here. When we come back, we'll be speaking about more, including what the ambassador of the US said that has gotten many people not very happy, some very happy. We'll talk about that after the break.